Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Weather on the Go, all your weather coverage. In today's forecast, we'll be walking you through week by week of February and showing you what you can expect through the month with temperatures, precipitation, and snow chances, most importantly, as we get through the last full month of meteorological winter. So thank you guys for joining me here on this Wednesday morning. Hope everybody's having a great start to their Wednesday out there. Let's look back at January 1st here and show you our temperature anomalies rounding out the month. And you can see we generally had below normal temperatures across Western Canada and then bleeding down through the middle of the country there across the Great Plains and portions of the southeast with those below normal temperatures. We had a lot of high pressure up here across southeastern Canada and the northeast U.S. That's where we saw more above normal temperatures favored across the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes, the Mid-Atlantic, and the Northeast during this period, and also out west as well. The Intermountain West saw some above normal temperatures through the month of January. And looking at an eventful month as well. Look at our precipitation as we went through January. Very active out west here across the West Coast from Washington State, Oregon, and down into Northern California. Some drier weather in the middle of the country, and then that picked up again across the eastern two-thirds. Look at all the heavy rain, especially down here into the lower Mississippi Valley, the southeast, and portions of that I-95 corridor into the northeast, seeing some decent precipitation through the month of January and above normal precipitation here. First out west across Washington State, places like Seattle, Portland, Oregon, down here towards Sacramento in California, seeing some well above normal precipitation through January. Drier again across the middle of the country, and then that picked up again along and east of the Mississippi River Valley, across especially the lower Mississippi Valley, the southeast, and then on up through that I-95 corridor from the Mid-Atlantic to the northeast. Those well above normal precipitation anomalies through January, and the snowfall with this as well. Not all of this was rain. We saw some decent snows across the Pacific Northwest, especially even down here in the Sierras in California. Some decent snows across the Rockies here with the ski resorts out there loving all that snow. We saw a lot of decent snowstorms across the Midwest, the Great Lakes during this period, producing over a foot of snow in a couple of instances from Chicago through Milwaukee and Detroit back through Des Moines, Iowa, even Kansas City getting in on some of that through January. And then a couple areas here into the Northeast, especially interior northeastern areas, starting to see more of that heavier snow through January from Maine back through Vermont, New Hampshire, upstate New York, and even Pennsylvania saw some decent snows through January. But if you like detailed, accurate weather forecast here across North America and the United States, make sure to press the subscribe button down below so you are stayed ahead of the storm out there, and I'll keep you well aware of the weather. And also make sure to press the like button down below. It helps out more than you know. So let's walk you through what we're seeing here, kind of give you more of a climate update, if you will. Let's look here at our sea surface temperature anomalies, and notice across the equatorial Pacific, we are still seeing El Nino conditions persist. Now, the water temperatures are starting to slowly cool down, which means our El Nino is starting to slowly weaken as of right now. Our subsurface temperatures below the surface of the ocean is actually starting to cool right now. So that is a sign that our El Nino is beginning to slowly weaken. And looking at the index here, we peaked a couple of times. We peaked back around Thanksgiving in late November, and also around that New Year's Eve, New Year's Day time frame, we peaked the second time, and ever since then, we've been on a slow decline. We're still at plus 1.2, which means we're at a moderate stage in the phase of El Nino, so we'll continue to watch that. But generally speaking, going through February, we got to watch out for this classic El Nino pattern. You have high pressure, you have warmer air, and also drier air to the north here. This encompasses Alaska, western and southern Canada, and the northern tier of the United States. That's mainly with a less active polar jet stream. And then to the south, a whole different ball game where we have wetter conditions and cooler conditions because of all that precipitation. And we have a very active Pacific jet stream moving in as well, pumping in that eastern Pacific moisture to the Pacific Southwest, the southern plains, the southeast, and on up the east coast in an El Nino winter pattern. And I think that's what we're going to see moving forward. So let's walk you through week by week everything that you need to know here. Let's look at this pattern across North America, and you can see the 1st through the 8th of February. This is our first week of the month. High pressure and firm control up here across Canada and the northern tier of the United States. That active storm track setting up across the west coast, the southern United States, and the southeast during this period. And what this means is underneath that high pressure, you're going to see a lot of warmer than normal temperatures across much of Canada here and the northern United States, in particular the northern plains and the upper Midwest, whereas where you're seeing that active storm track, we're going to see a lot more cloud cover, a lot more precipitation chances. So below normal temperatures will be favored across the Pacific Southwest there, including California, getting across portions of the southeast coast, Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas, and on up toward Virginia there, and parts of the I-95 corridor, probably near normal with our temperature anomalies through the first week here of the month. Looking at that storm track, we're going to see low pressure systems move on to the west coast. They'll dive east-southeastward through Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas before starting to lift up across the southeast and into the mid-Atlantic in this pattern. So what this means is the heaviest precip will actually fall across the southern United States. This is much like we see during a classic El Nino pattern. So the heaviest rains and precipitation in general will be across California here through the Four Corners region, the southern plains, and near the Gulf Coast again. I think we get hit hard by some rainfall going through the first week of February. Now, we do have some colder air that is on the way, but that's going to be out west, okay? So we're going to see a lot more snowfall across the Rockies and the Sierras in California. We're going to definitely see feet of snow in this pattern through the first week of the month. The eastern two-thirds of the country, we're going to have to wait to get the colder air to move in. It's still pretty warm here, so a lot of our precip will be rainfall across this region with this storm track, but that changes a little bit into the second week of February. This is February 8th through the 15th. We still have that high pressure kind of wobbling around across eastern and southeastern Canada here. We have a little bit of ridging up to Alaska. So what this means is that is going to force our low pressure systems further south again across portions of California through the Four Corners region and into the Gulf Coast states and the southeast. So notice our temperature anomalies across the east, we're above normal. Across the west, we're below normal. So we're kind of seeing that very active storm track really setting up here, and you can see that across the Four Corners region. And I think the second week in February, the storm track is a little bit further south, closer to central Texas, near the Gulf Coast, and then up the Carolina coast there, seeing some very nice storm systems potentially traversing this area. And you can see that reflected on the signal on our ensemble guidance. You can see the heaviest precip across the southern tier of the United States, again across the Gulf Coast states and into the southeast and eastern U.S. And this also could come at the cost of snow. Now, again, we're warmer in the east, so it will be tough initially to see the snowfall out there. But as that cold air comes in across the west, we're going to see more snow there across the Rockies. Maybe a little bit of that step down process of the snow from southern Canada back into the northern plains, the upper Midwest, and the upper Great Lakes regions. And then we have to watch interior New England. If we get a storm off the coast, probably the I-95 corridor seeing mostly rain, and then interior areas seeing mostly snow with these systems if that active storm track sets up the right way. And then finally, by the third week into February, the 15th through the 22nd, we really start to see some changes here. We have ridging and high pressure building across western Canada and all the way up to the Gulf of Alaska. Now, this is a perfect and primed pattern for some wintry weather across the southern and the eastern United States here, at least at the surface. So let's look at this here. Our temperature anomalies from the 15th through the 22nd of February. Most of the lower 48 outside of the northern plains or the upper Midwest will be below normal. And this goes even for southeastern Canada in this pattern. And you can see the storm track with this as well. Between the 15th and the 22nd, we have low pressure again across the Four Corners that'll drop southeast through north or central Texas, right along the Gulf Coast, and then lifting off of the southeast coast and that benchmark area for where we watch for nor'easters off of Cape Cod, that's where that central low pressure track could be, which would mean the cold side of these storms would be on the northwest side for the northeast, the mid-Atlantic, and possibly even the southeast. So let's look at this here. Looking at this, there's a signal again, the Gulf Coast, the southeast, and the east coast above normal precip. You can see a lot of precip popping up here during that third week in February, and that snow line begins to shift further south. Now, these aren't incredibly big totals. This is an ensemble run, so it's not going to show you 15 inches of snow, but it gives you an idea. You can see this gray line down here. That gives you an idea where how far south we can get these storm tracks that snow line could get. So yes, we could very well see snow across portions there of Dixie Alley, down through portions of Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, even the Carolinas and Tennessee in this pattern during the third week in February. And then as we go into the last week of the month, the 22nd through the 29th time frame, we still see that same pattern persisting. You have the below normal heights down here across the southern U.S. You see the ridging up to Alaska, and another perfect example for wintry weather out there. Below normal temperature anomalies. You like to see this for wintry weather, except again outside of the northern plains and the upper Midwest, seeing above normal temperatures here, and the same storm track as we go into the last week in February. See the consistency here is key, and more above average precipitation across the southern, southeastern, and eastern U.S., which means we're going to start to see more of that snowfall potentially piling up as far south again as Dixie Alley and the southeast, including the Carolinas, with this pattern. So be patient. I think the second half of February is looking more favorable for snow. If you're a snow lover across the southeast, the mid-Atlantic, or the northeast, there are some better days ahead for that. Looking at the Climate Prediction Center's official monthly forecast for February 2024, they have above normal temperatures, especially favored likely up here to the Pacific Northwest, but just in general, the northern tier of the U.S. above normal. Equal chances of above or below across the southern tier of the United States, and just near normal down here, including the Rio Grande Valley here in central Texas and across the southeast coast, including southeastern Alabama, southern Georgia, southern South Carolina, and much of Florida near normal with our temperatures. Precipitation, notice it follows that same type of trajectory. Below normal up here through the Ohio Valley and interior New England, but that active storm track south will bring above normal precip for California, including central and southern California through the Four Corners region, and then the southeast coast from the Rio Grande Valley through portions there of Florida, and then all the way up through the Carolina coast, seeing some decent precipitation through the month of February. Looking at the snowstorm probability as well, this is a map I put together looking at all of the data. Obviously, the higher elevations out west will see some decent snow potential in the Sierras here, having a 75 to 100% chance of some heavy snow with this pattern. A little bit less of a chance up to the north into the higher elevations of Washington State and Oregon, more of a 50 to a 75% chance because that most of the precip and the active storm track and moisture will be further south. But we still have a decent chance there. And then in this teal shaded color, or this lighter blue, we're starting to see more of that 25 to 50% chance across the Rockies, the northern U.S. here, and that covers most of the country, even down to the southeast. And these darker blues, that's a 50 to a 75% chance from the Central Plains up through the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, and into the Great Lakes regions. We could have a couple of different storm tracks here. If we get a little bit further north storm track, we could see some snow in this region. If we get a little bit further south storm track, we could set up some nor'easter potential, and you see this pink area here, that's a 75% chance or higher of some snowstorms moving across especially interior New England and the Appalachians down into the mid-Atlantic with this pattern. So I do think there's some nice days ahead. Winter is certainly not over, and we'll continue to keep you updated as we move forward through February. I hope this was informative for each and every one of you. Comment down below if it was. I do appreciate that. Otherwise, subscribe to the channel if you are new. We'll continue to keep you updated with accurate weather forecasts across North America and the United States right here on this channel. Make sure to press the like button down below. It helps out more than you know. Share this video with friends, family, and on social media, and I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their week out there.